What do you think the future of the taxi industry is in terms of electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, or even driverless cars?
Um, I'd always thought that the taxi industry would move across to hybrids and better emission vehicles when it was financially viable. Right? They'd always look at cost and balance. As an individual in a small little business that wasn't particularly aware of ESGs and environmental things, that they would do it when it was financially viable. The government set a deadline for the UK of, is it 2030 for no longer having diesel cars, petrol cars and being all electric, but our local councils are bringing along rules to make that happen faster. So in the local council district that I'm in, by 2025, any new vehicle being licensed has to have under 50 CO2 emissions, which will enforce drivers to take that choice earlier if they weren't already. But the mileage that those sorts of cars do nowadays is getting better and better. It's becoming more viable. When they only had 50 miles and 100 miles, it wasn't going to do a day's worth of work for a taxi. They're getting up into the 300-mile range now. So as that mileage gets better and the charging time comes down, that's pretty crucial for a taxi driver. I saw one vehicle that took sort of 18 hours to charge, which is a long time if you try to do it at home overnight. But as those two things get better and better, I think drivers will move across to that. And the council bringing in those enforcements will bring it along quicker as well. On the driverless car front, I think they'll get here in the end, but there are many complications to driving around in big cities versus driverless. I think they'll introduce driverless cars perhaps on the motorway where you can allow it to drive for free, but I can't see driverless cars appearing tomorrow. I can't see driverless cars appearing in the short term. I think it's more of a mid-term vision. And even when it does, I think the taxi operators would look to utilize that in the same way. I run a fleet of 20 cars myself that have drivers in them at the moment. Would I continue to run a fleet of 20 cars that were driverless? So it's an interesting marketplace. I think we'll grab that technology as it comes out and utilize it as best as possible for our businesses.
Absolutely, yeah. It's interesting to follow, isn't it? And certainly from our point of view, it would. I'd miss the drivers and their smiling faces, but it will be a different spectrum and different level.
I don't think it will ever take away fully from the driver, because there are some services that customers, will want help loading the bags, will want an old lady's shopping carried to her door, needs things loaded into the boot. So I think there'll always be a flex of service, at least.
Maybe they'll become more like an attendant, just for safety grounds, because obviously it's going to take a lot of confidence for people to step into driverless vehicles to begin with. So if there's an attendant there, perhaps
and confidence from the councils, because the councils always legislate us on the basis of passenger safety. That's their key aim. Their key aim on everything they do within our industry is all about passenger safety. So even if they came along tomorrow, would the councils allow a passengerless taxi straight away? Our licensing authorities are very different to other countries.
Absolutely.
Find out more today at mbhcorporation.com.